You ever feel like owning an animal akin to a dinosaur? Like you'd love to go outside and dance with the closest thing to a Dr. Seuss character that you can get? If so, an emu might be for you. What is an emu? An emu, part of the genus Dromaeus, is the second tallest bird in the world. With only the ostrich being taller, they can reach up to a height of 6 foot 2 inches. Though they're the second tallest, they're the fifth heaviest bird in the world, with 2 species of ostrich and 2 species of cassowary being heavier. The emu's weight is comparable to that of the amazing emperor penguin, being anywhere from 60 to a whopping 132 pounds when fully grown. Emus are usually sexually dimorphic, meaning that the females are often taller and weigh more once fully grown than the males. They are a beautiful soft-feathered bird, standing tall with a humorously long neck and eyes disproportionately big for their small heads. Their feathers are unique in that they have 2 feathers per follicle instead of the usual 1 that other birds have. They have a bluish tint to the skin on their heads and upper necks, much like that of a turkey's head. This bluish hue gets more prominent with maturity and sometimes very bright during mating season. The original and most common feathering color for an emu is brown with gray and black splashed throughout. More recently, though, they are bred into lighter colors, coming in what we call blonde feathering. It has also become more common to breed out albino emus, which have the lighter blonde or white feathering, but also pinkish skin and legs. As babies, emus have extremely distinct stripes of brown and black running down their backs, with blonde and albino emus having more of a spotted appearance as opposed to the usual stripes. Making our way down their long legs, which make up nearly half their height, you will find 3 forward-facing toes with long, sharp claws at the end. These are the emu's best weapons and form of defense, as it helps them run up to 30 miles an hour with strides up to 9 feet long while running, but also allows them to administer a pretty powerful kick. You may be wondering, if they're birds, where are their wings? Well, they do have them, but they're hard to spot. They have vestigial wings that are about the size of my hand, with tiny claws at the end of them as well. They have a habit of putting these out while running, which is thought to possibly help with balance, but other than that, they don't seem to have much use, even for the claw at the end, and they end up just being another laughable but wonderful part of the emu. So where do these unusual creatures originate? Well, aside from every who down in Whoville possibly owning one, they actually come from the continent of Australia, where they claim most of the mainland as home and are the largest birds on this continent. Smaller subspecies used to also reside in Tasmania, Kangaroo Island, and King Island, but became extinct after the European settlement in 1788. In their homeland of Australia, they experience all types of weather throughout their 4 seasons and can actually thermoregulate during temperatures as low as 23 degrees Fahrenheit and up to 113 degrees Fahrenheit, or -5 to 45 degrees Celsius. Sitting down to cover their long legs and using their large bodies to heat helps during the lower side of these temperatures. They have since become popular in other countries, though, including the United States, and seem to do well in nearly all of the states here. We've even had ours out during temperatures that have reached major lows, with wind chills being as low as -15 degrees, and they survive just fine without heat lamps as long as they have a dry shelter to seek that keeps them out of the winds. This is nearly the only time they seem to care to seek indoor shelter, as they're known for sleeping outside all other times. They've even been known to stand out in the middle of hurricane winds and rains in the lower states. So what do these gigantic birds eat? Well, like most birds and ratites, they're foragers that are omnivorous. They graze on grass for a large part of their diet, but love to eat on whatever plants and fruit that are in season and that they can reach. They aren't the most graceful of eaters, though, and tend to grab things and throw them up only to catch whatever will go into their open mouths. They also love to snack on small insects, anything from grubs to grasshoppers and moths, having fun racing and chasing them down. Speaking of a chase down, like chickens, they won't pass up the chance to run after a small rodent scurrying by, though they don't always end up eating them and instead just pick them up and toss them around like a cat who's proud of the kitchen mouse they've just caught. Really, they get excited to chase after most anything smaller. As we've found, when not properly introduced, ours have even danced around and ganged up on a new chicken brought into their pen. Being that they're from a country with scattered resources and weather, they've been known to be able to go several days without any of this food. Another thing they can go days without is water. Even when provided with water, they tend to only drink it once a day, but for a long period of time. They've been known to sit and drink for up to 10 minutes at a time, ready to fill up for the possible waterless days ahead. Now, the only thing funnier than an emu's appearance is their behavior. They love to run at full speed and swing their bodies around like some crazy dance when excited. This excitement can be caused by something they see, like a small child or dog running by, or even by a new noise, like a tractor working in the field. Though they're similar to chickens and turkeys by loving to take dust baths, one way that they are majorly different is their love for water. Give them a sprinkler or puddle of water, and these birds are all in. They will run and dance through spraying water and lay down and even roll over in a good puddle. They've even been known to actually swim across a deep river or pond. Seriously, these guys are like 5 animals in one. Like I mentioned before, they often lay on their long legs to help thermoregulate, and this is how they prefer to sleep. You can usually tell how deep they're sleeping by how close their heads have come to the ground, with the deepest of sleepers laying their necks out and heads right on the ground. They sleep for about 7 hours total, but usually only in increments of about 90 minutes at a time, waking up to check their surroundings and to defecate, of course. Ever wonder what these creatures actually sound like, though? Well, that can be a variety of noises. The first sound I noticed in each of our emus as they grew was their hissing, which was most often done when they were startled by something or trying to come off as intimidating. As they mature and become ready to mate, females are most commonly known to do the booming, which literally sounds like a car driving by with their system up and bumping. Though males are most commonly known for the grunting sound, I've heard all of our emus grunt when excitedly playing in water. Like I mentioned earlier, females are most known for the booms, and this is often when seeking a mate. These booms can be heard up to 1.2 miles away. They will boom while drawing back their heads and putting out their chest feathers and strutting around. This behavior usually takes place during the summer months of December and January in Australia, with them making their nests in the cooler months of May and June. Our seasons are at different times in the States, however, so over here they start to nest and lay their clutches in the months of October and November. They'll make their nests from whatever they can find, most commonly being bark, grasses, sticks, and leaves. The nests, though circular, will usually remain quite flat to the ground, but be more raised in areas where temperatures are cooler. The females lay their group of eggs, or clutch, and then it's left to the males to incubate them for 8 weeks, about 56 days, during which he does almost no eating, drinking, or defecating. He only gets up 10 times a day to turn the eggs and sometimes gets some grass or morning dew if it's within reach of this nest, which is why they usually lose about a third of their body weight during this time. Most females will then leave and mate again and lay more clutches with other mates, having many nests with many offspring. In some cases, because they exhibit brood parasitism, emus will even take over nests of eggs that don't belong to either mate. Basically, the animal kingdom form of adoption or abduction. In rare cases, when mates are sparse, females will actually stick around with the original mate and help guard the nest, sometimes even going as far as to take turns sitting on the nest, giving the male a break and a moment to eat. The eggs that are laid are a beautiful pale green color that grow into a dark green with dark spots during incubation. At the end of 8 weeks, little emus standing only 5 inches tall hatch out of their eggs and are raised by their amazing stay-at-home dads for up to 6 months, and sometimes even stick around home until the next mating season. Though when they leave, this is mainly to get out of the way of their parents, because it can take the babies anywhere from 1 to 3 years to reach sexual maturity of their own before they care to take on such a responsibility. So now you have an amazing picture of what these birds look like, where they come from, and what great personalities they have. Now's the time to decide if they're worth owning, or why you would want to own them. The original emus have been reported to be hunted as early as the 1600s. The early natives and later Europeaners hunted them for many reasons. A big one being that they just wanted to get rid of these crazy animals destroying their crops. They were also heavily hunted for their meat, which is actually red like a cow, even though they're poultry. They have a very low amount of fat, but really high amount of oil, which can be used for cooking and was originally heavily used to run their oil lamps and even for medicinal purposes, as they'd rub it on their skin as an anti-inflammatory. You can also make leather, which is similar to ostrich leather, and their feathers and eggs have long been used for crafts. People will adorn crafts and clothes with their feathers while etching into their thick eggshells to make beautiful decorative pieces. Though they don't run wild here in the States, it's become very popular to farm emus. It was much more popular in the 80s before the emu farms declined, but now seem to be back on the rise for many reasons. While originally used to farm for meat and oil, they now seem to be on the rise for hobby farms and zoos alike, as they're very curious birds who will walk up to almost anything that moves or is shiny. Even in the wild, emus are known to come to humans if you just flap your arms around or lay on your back and kick your legs. Each emu has their very unique personality of their own, and depending on how much time you spend with them from hatching, they can act very much like your favorite dog. And did I mention the meat? In a country where cattle and beef are so popular, it's a wonder to why this craze hasn't caught on more. They have nearly the same meat on them as cattle, but are easier to care for and make up a much smaller ecological footprint. You can raise many more emu than cattle in the same given space, and once butchered, the land that you're left with isn't as worn down, and is often much more rich with the seed spreading and fertilizing they do while eating and relieving themselves. But even with butchering aside, the emu business is very lucrative at this point, as they're so popular with hobby farms and zoos simply for their personalities and color alone. And you can get top dollar for the special colors that have become so trendy nowadays among animal owners. But really, what more reason could you need than just the perfect dance partner?